Hey there, everyone, and welcome to our first podcast interview with the Digital Jungle. Today I have with me, Jill Robbins, who we met on LinkedIn, and she specializes in sales, leadership training, and procurement. And she has quite an interesting story that I wanted to first get into, as well as some tips for anyone who is an entrepreneur, whether you're starting out or you already have a business and you're looking to just hit that next level, just improve your sales, improve your leadership. She has some tidbits of information that I think could help a lot of you. So thank you so much for being on, Jill.
Thanks, Alex. Great to be here.
Thank you for, no problem. Really quick to start out. So I was really curious. I was looking at your profile, your experiences, and was wondering how you actually ended up doing what you're doing currently.
So I spent the last 20 years in the corporate world in a variety of roles in strategic sourcing, global procurement, did Lean Six Sigma, did procurement operations, and did business development as well. So did, deal valuations and assessments and due diligence. And then I built a procurement organization most recently at an animal health organization. And then I took a parenting leave the second week of June. So, things have changed. Everyone's priorities have changed. And, we have a 5-year-old. So decided that it was time to be present with him. I had people reporting to me on every continent. And my son saw me work more than not. So it was time to kind of recalibrate. And during the 20 years I was in the corporate world, my husband and I have been entrepreneurs. So started, and sold different businesses. I've written a children's book. So I'd say I have a unique lens, from the business perspective, and have a real appreciation of what it takes to build and sustain a business. And so as I took the leave of absence, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I went into focus on helping sales and account management professionals effectively sell to procurement. And what does that mean, right? So it means teaching them to become a procurement insider. So what does procurement follow in terms of process? What metrics are they reporting to senior management, and how are they negotiating with you? How are they evaluating, category strategies, commodity strategies for their businesses? So my clients are improving deal closures exponentially, improving margins overall, and building long-term relationships that lead to more sales for them.
Awesome. So just out of curiosity, so you said before you had your own business along with your husband, and what type of lens more specifically allowed you to or what type of things did you see in the entrepreneur type of mindset that you were able to bring over here and, drive better sales and so on?
Yeah, it's really about focusing on, margins, on the value proposition that you bring to the table, and, the long-term sustainability and customer satisfaction. I think in the corporate world, sometimes employees can become blinded and work in silos. And when you have your own business, you must look across the entire value chain. You're accountable for everything from a P&L perspective. So I'd say thinking outside the box, looking at best practices so that your business is maximized and sustainable for the long term.
I see. And would you say there's any specific challenges that you see a lot with entrepreneurs in terms of, the value? Is it more like the value proposition, any area in particular that you think a lot of entrepreneurs need help with or challenges with, or I don't know, from your own experience even?
Yeah, it depends what type of business it is. If it's a service business, you've got a different set of challenges than, a bricks and mortar kind of customer service oriented business. But looking at what motivates the customer is number one. and exceeding, their expectations is critical in anything that you're doing. Not taking shortcuts. And, I coach my clients, don't sell at any cost. So many people want to discount. So many people want to offer incentives. And, depending on the market that you're in, that may be okay here and there. And as we come off of Black Friday and now today's, Cyber Monday,
Yep.
We're seeing all these discounts. But, I'd say that the world is changing. The economy is changing. And if you have a good or service that is of unique value and, you can separate yourself from the competition, be cognizant of that and focus on that value and, maximizing your internal productivity. So we're not good at everything, right? We're only human. So tapping on, everyone that's within your organization onto their strengths and, bringing in experts to run different parts of your business as it makes sense.
I love that. And I also love the fact that you said right now is a crazy time for, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And I'm personally actually in a lot of these groups online, especially in Facebook. So whether they're agency owners or just any other entrepreneur. And what I saw a lot of, and kind of the mistake that I used to make, especially in the beginning, was not valuing your unique, whatever that service or your product, or even worse is undervaluing your own time. If you're doing consulting, or if what you do is really able to transition people from, A to B, and you're kind of undercutting that's going to, I think, hurt you when you're trying to sell to them, either upsell to them, or you're trying to get referrals, or just pretty much just for yourself, for your own brand and what it is that you do. And, one way around that I saw, and I don't know what maybe your thoughts are, but if you have a particular product and service, maybe there's a way you can add extra value, that doesn't cost you anything, doesn't cost your time, just something that you already have already. Maybe it's like a course, or maybe it's some resources or something like that to kind of make the value better. Actually, one particular offer that I saw recently was a CRM that I use called Go High Level. So they had, the regular package, but on top of that, they just added all of these, just like all these features that they already had anyway, but it was just, here's an extra incentives for you to enroll, just getting that value up high. But I mean, I made that mistake so many times before. I would just discount, or even on these sales calls, you want to get the business, you want to get them. And one thing I recently discovered was you want to, when you're first starting out, you want to raise your prices, not lower them. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's something that's actually recently been helping me a lot with just attracting the right people and not discounting myself.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Alex. And I think we're our own worst enemy, right? We want, our mind can play tricks on us over and over again. And I think, knowing your value and as you said, with the CRM tool you're using, they went above and beyond to make you happy and threw in, some extra bells and whistles that really was no skin off of their back, but will then allow you to refer more business to them because they've delighted you. So there is definitely a way, as a consultant, as an advisory firm, as an agency, as a, technology company or digital transformation to, add on that additional value in different ways that benefit your clients. And, our intellectual property, we've gained over the course of our lifetime, over the course of our, working time. And, people see a price tag and they're like, oh, well, I'm just getting this per hour or this deliverable. And it's much more than that because you've put in the blood, sweat, and tears. You failed, you've fallen down, you've maybe lost money over time. And as a result, you can then deliver value and help them elevate, in my case, their selling model so that they can communicate effectively with procurement. They can speak procurement's language. And to my clients, that's invaluable. And many of them have been selling for 30 plus years, but have never been taught the inside game of procurement.
I love that. And it's almost like I almost feel like it's maybe a mindset shift from, this is the hours as opposed to this is the results. And even if it's something that for me, I'll just use Facebook ads as an example. If it takes me 15 minutes, it takes me 15 minutes. But the result of me taking that 15 minutes can outweigh someone who's just starting out and spending hours and hours and mistake after mistake to, waste money and time, as opposed to just paying someone to do it. And I've actually done that myself, because a lot of the lessons I'm learning right now, it's like, oh, I could have just paid someone who already knew how to solve this problem 6 months ago, and I would have been at a whole nother level. So I think, I don't know if you've, used mentors or, if there's maybe more experiences along the way that has helped you.
Yeah, don't be afraid to screw up that's the best learning, right? You can have great mentors and coaches, but we are all unique. So having people advise us, especially, from, I'd say, a personal finance perspective, I'm a big advocate of, treat it like it's your own within your business. If you work within a corporation, think and act like an owner. That applies, to your business, to your personal finances. We only have one shot at this. So, I think a lot of that translates. And some of us learn, earlier or later, depending on our set of, experiences and upbringing. But, I think all of those things are hypercritical in being successful and not beating ourselves up, because we are going to screw up. No matter what it is, if it's a decision, if it's a campaign, but, just being, human and having that humility, I think is really key.
Mm. So in terms of, when you're like an entrepreneur, I don't know, like, I think I'm just kind of talking to my audience here when saying this, but when you started out and you were starting to get into leadership and starting to manage people, what would you say was kind of maybe one or two of the biggest hurdles that you or maybe a lot of people you see face? Yeah, so great question. I first became a leader in a procurement operations role, and I was managing people that were 20 to 40 years my senior. So, I had to build a rapport with them. I had to build trust with them. Because they knew what they were doing. And, just treating people with respect and with humility is critical. And it's weird, we're in this social world right now, but we have become less human in this social world. And I think you just have to, connect with people, face to face, whether it's, through video conference or FaceTime, or meet them for coffee in a safe way. But getting to know people and respecting them on a personal level is critical. And that sounds very basic, but that was the key to my success in building that trust. And then as I, at that point in time, I inherited a team. And, having high expectations of yourself, having high expectations of your team is critical. And, not being afraid to deal with performance issues, especially in very large organizations. People can get passed around for a long time, not being afraid to make some of those tough decisions. I had to do that many times early in my leadership career. And then my advice, as you're building a team, from scratch, if you have that opportunity, is look for people with business savvy. No matter what department you're in, you can't work in silos into the future. And, at these companies, no matter what the size, you want someone that can see the forest through the trees. You want someone that can connect with any department in the organization. So if you're in legal, you still need to be able to talk with someone in finance. If you're in finance, you still need to be able to talk with someone in compliance and audit and quality. So, just that general business savvy
and understanding the value chain connectivity and asking open-ended questions is really key. The people I've hired over the years, the most successful ones have had side hustles. I've talked about this in other panels that I've been on over the years, and it is okay to have a side hustle. And, it's been frowned upon, for years in the corporate world, but it makes people a better employee oftentimes. And, they're oftentimes more accountable too, because they understand the mechanics of what it takes to run a successful business.
I love that. And you actually kind of took the words out of my mouth at the end there, because I was curious on what your thoughts were about, the kind of the transition from, the time that, kind of the traditional corporate. And, I haven't been in corporate a while, but I've been in it for about 2 years, to, the times that we're in right now, where almost everyone has a side hustle. I mean, Gary Vee's talking about it and all these big influencers, and it's almost, I would say maybe even a third or half of people are doing something on the side. So, I'm hoping that maybe there is a transition, in terms of hiring, where they're seeing value in, starting a business, running a business, because it and I know it, it's very, very valuable in terms of the lessons that you learn. And I personally feel like I've learned more in a year than I would, learn corporate in 5 or 10 years. Right. It's a totally different ball game. Would you say that it's changing for the better, or would you say that what would you say from your lens?
I'd say it's leader dependent, really. You still have, old curmudgeons or, old school thinkers in the corporate world. And for the last, I'd say 5-10 years, I've coached, my folks to continue to, get certifications, to, pursue outside interests, serve on boards, whatever the case may be. And I think, you have to feel people out and understand what their priorities are. Some people may say, hey, I want to retire when I'm 40, or I want to, do this, and this. Well, you've got to have supplemental streams of income to do that and diversify and understand that. So, just understanding what the motivators are for an individual is really important. So, but I think, yes, it's become more acceptable, definitely. And it's not as taboo as it used to be, especially in this, working from home realm, because you're saving time on your commute, but oftentimes, you're spending more time on your computer. So I just say, have an open mind and, have an open dialogue with your leadership about, what your priorities are.
I love that. So in terms of, managing these employees and whoever it is that you have on your team, how is there any specific questions that you would recommend in the beginning to make sure that, they have the right motivation and you understand each other in the best possible way, just moving forward and working together?
Yeah, there are, hard and fast situational leadership questions, interview questions that, anyone can look up on the web. I really like to get into kind of personal motivations, personal values, integrity, asking them, questions in, different circumstantial situations, and what their responses are and how they've worked with people that were difficult to get along with. If they had a conflict with their boss or with their boss's boss's boss, or, they saw something, what did they do? So just, different questions. But, you mentioned Gary Vee, integrity wins the game. As soon as you sell your soul, it is game over. So don't sell your soul. Life is too short. And it may not feel good to, stand your ground and, hold to your value system. But it is so important because, you've been you see it too often that, people have golden handcuffs or, make decisions for the wrong reasons. And it's just not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, in terms of, it's basically just making the right decisions from my understanding. So you're saying basically the ability to make decisions and
Yep.
not, yeah, and just kind of just have the integrity and ethics behind that, backing that, and just having a clear vision. And I guess too, like maybe clear expectations of, hey, this is the company's values, and making sure they align right off the bat.
Yep.
Because especially if maybe you're training another, I'm just imagining, but I'm guessing if you're training another manager or leader, and that's just kind of a domino effect in a corporate environment, if they're making the wrong decisions, or they say, oh, it's okay to just turn our backs to this, that makes a lot of other things okay. So
right.
I think that's good that you vet that first to avoid a whole mess, because I've seen that.
Yeah. And ask open-ended questions. I mean, the basics are, like I said, integrity, the ability to problem solve, the ability to collaborate. You want basic technical skills, you want great communication skills. And like I said, people who can connect fragmented pieces of an organization are critical, because silos have got to be broken down if we want to see real innovation, no matter the industry, the sector, the country of the world. You've got to have that vision widened.
I see. So in terms of working, I kind of wanted to dive a little bit more also into the sales part of what you do. So just so I get a better understanding. So are you part of the process from when they're getting trained to when they're actually selling, with procurement and everything, or what part of that specifically are you mostly involved with?
Yeah, so my clients range from service organizations to goods organizations selling to procurement, to digital transformation technology companies that are selling to procurement. So, I can, improve anyone's selling position as they are selling to and through procurement. And I follow an assess process. So first, I go in and I assess their current selling model, their sales materials, what words they're using, how they're articulating their value proposition. We go through kind of a survey process so I can fully understand what hurdles they face as they're trying to close deals, what they're hearing from procurement if deals get delayed. And then I tailor the training, so the procurement insider training and the selling to negotiating with procurement training, based on what I hear from that survey and is specific to their industry. And then there's ongoing advisory work with my clients. So they may pull me into a deal. They could be working with a large, Fortune 50 company in a deal that's been going on for months and months and months, or, years. And they're curious, hey, how can we close this? How can we move the needle and get this deal signed? So, I help them with that. They may be responding to an RFP. I help them with a proposal so that they're more creative in their responses, because procurement can require very rigid responses. So I coach them on how to be creative, how to think outside the box, so that they can effectively stand out from their competition while articulating their value proposition.
So I think that's very valuable what you just said. So just being able to be unique, from what I understand, just being unique, really just kind of standing out in terms of all these other companies, especially when it's that the stakes are high. Because we're not talking about, just like a small restaurant or anything. Like, these are big companies and, big processes. And I'm sure decisions have to go through different levels of management. Would you say there's anything in particular in terms of making, or that you've seen often with these value propositions and just making themselves more valuable to, in terms of a proposal and kind of just be ahead of the competition?
Yeah, I think, listening to the customer and what their priorities are, and not selling a cookie cutter product or service or solution, and really tailoring it so that you're solving a problem they have, you're preventing a problem from occurring, or you're improving productivity, you're lowering their total cost of ownership. So, it depends, but, going in eyes wide open. And if they're selling to a publicly traded company, doing their homework, listening to earnings calls, listening to those analyst questions, so that, again, they can position themselves in a position of strength as they are selling.
And would you say that some of those key concepts for kind of that setting, could they also be applied for if you are a smaller entrepreneur, you're looking to sell to, whether it's B2C, just selling to customers, or selling to just other businesses, but maybe they're not Fortune 50, they're, smaller type of businesses, if it's like a clothing line or something like that?
Yep, definitely. Yeah. So the same principles apply. And typically there would be less red tape. It would be less formalized, but definitely the same principles apply. And knowing, what language to speak, and, what's important, how procurement's, measured is very critical, so that you can essentially make procurement the hero as you are selling your solution to the organization.
And I think that is something that's important. If people are not thinking of selling on a massive scale to whether it's a product or a service, one thing that, and this is also going, I'm not completely innocent of this. I mean, I did this in the beginning too, is one mistake that a lot of people make is not thinking big enough. Instead of trying to target each customer at a time, one thing that you could do is what we call it in the agency world is power partners. So someone that has access to, rather than just trying to target just one customer, you're targeting someone who has access to tens of or dozens of customers, or hundreds, or even in the thousands. So if you have a good value proposition, you're able to have your whole business streamlined from onboarding to fulfillment and sales. You have a very high chance of approaching, even if it's just one company and you end up working with one company, that could be the difference between being a $3,000 a month business and a $30,000 or $300,000 a month business. Right. And, you can just get insane referrals from that. And that's actually something I'm working on with, my own things, different deals and just, but it all starts with that value proposition, having a good service and, really making sure you have everything together. But once after that, I mean, I would encourage, and let me know your thoughts, but I would encourage everyone to think about, who is it that I can partner with? What are some types of win-win situations that we can really just take all this to the next level and, build our brand, build our products or service, whatever that is.
Yep. Yep. And it's about, as you're selling, you want to reduce their total cost of ownership structure and increase productivity and improve their return on investment, because they're investing in, your product or solution. So how are you going to differentiate yourself to be that long-term partner of theirs?
So in terms of long-term investment and ROI, is there any thing in particular you would recommend for people in their sales process to show that and to just make them understand that and really make it I guess enticing for them to want to continue and move forward?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of storytelling. So, as you are doing your homework on the customer, asking open-ended questions of your key points of contact there, build that storyline. You can use an iceberg chart. There's different illustrations you can use that articulate, total cost of ownership, return on investment, as it's specific to your product or solution, and use visuals. Tell the story and, get under the covers of what they're thinking, and how you can improve their profitability, their margin structure, increase their revenues, all the things that, are driving businesses today, and have been for decades. But, I think COVID has highlighted, efficiencies in companies. So, anytime you can help someone overcome an inefficiency, it's a win for you.
I see. So how do they usually create their story, or what do they usually build their story around? Is that kind of just how they came to be and why they're doing what they're doing? Or what are some questions that can help people just build their story, would you say, that they can ask themselves?
Yeah. So, your story is your story. When I'm talking about storytelling as, how to sell more effectively, to get your deal across the finish line, is, understanding what is driving their business, understand what their hurdles are. So, you're going to be listening, and asking open-ended questions. So, I don't think, your story is going to change, but how you then are able to penetrate their business, and use storytelling to your advantage. How, you've helped other clients, how, what you're doing, with them today. So if, you want to upsell, continue to do that and articulate how you're doing it and why you are a better solution than your competition. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think that's something that is easily missed, is maybe just, instead of maybe justifying in the sales process, more of just kind of, because you're never going to be able, it's not good to, or it's not fun to compete on price. No. It's better to compete on, that kind of relationship that you have, and create a story around it, and really draw on the right people to your business and to what you're doing. So I think that's awesome. And I think especially nowadays, that's what really makes you unique, from a branding perspective, being able to have a good presence as well as have a good story around that, whether you're especially if you're like a nonprofit or maybe like an e-commerce or something. I mean, there's a million other stores probably similar to you. And if you have something that can relate to, I actually have a close friend. I'll give you a quick example. I have a close friend who, I'll probably interview him as well on here. So me and him collaborated on some agency stuff. He also has a dog walking business, and he's basically franchising it out right now. But what makes him unique is that it's vegan based, and he does eco-friendly, like trucks and vehicles to transport the dogs and to do the service. And, he's been able to start to create a really, really good community and brand around that. And it's just a huge differentiating thing, because it's instead of just being like, oh, I'm just a mom and pop dog walker, here I am. I'm someone who's passionate about the environment, or passionate about eating healthy and veganism, and making sure I'm taking care of animals and everything. So even a slight difference, a slight edge, can be the difference, I think, between closing a deal and not closing a deal.
Yeah. I think today in the world, if it's a technology, it's, robotics, process automation, so RPA, machine learning, artificial intelligence. How are you going to take the human out of a process and make the data more reliable, make the processes faster, and the organization, more productive? So that's one example. And then anchoring on that and understanding how that ties into, who you're selling to is really critical. But, I think you hit the nail on the head, Alex. It's, thinking like your customer. So it's buyer-centered selling, and then value-based selling. So, how do you anchor on those two concepts then to elevate your selling position?
I like that. So so you said buyer cut out.
Yep, I'm back now. Yep.
Yeah, what exactly was anchor selling? I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yeah, so there's buyer-centered selling, so it's putting yourself in the shoes of your customer. So, like you said, you're not just cookie cutter selling. So, everyone's not just vanilla ice cream. You're not selling the same product solution in the same way to everyone. You're putting yourself in their shoes. It could be different depending on the industry that they're in. It could be on the continent of the world. So there are differentiating factors that you would want to adjust to, and the value-based messaging and value-based selling. So understanding that value proposition that you bring to the table.
And then what would you say are some maybe questions that people can continue to ask their customers or their clients to continue to either improve their existing service or have future upsells or other services that could solve problems and help them.
Yeah, understand how they're doing it today. So what you're selling, just ask open-ended questions. How's it working today? Are you happy with the partners you currently have in place? Where do you see any downfalls, in the process or the product that you're currently using? And then just dig deeper from there, asking why 5 times. I'm a big proponent of, Lean Six Sigma. And do it in a collaborative way, not in a hostile way or a threatening way, but really seeking to understand and listening, because people are a wealth of knowledge. And when they find someone that's willing to listen to them and help solve their problems, they won't stop talking. So you will learn a lot about what's going on. And it may not lead to an immediate sale. You may have to go back and improve your product or change a few things, or you may have to refer them to someone else. But it's building that trust with them up front. And that's another thing. I teach my clients, procurement's not the enemy. Bringing them into the process earlier rather than later, especially when they are, driving a lot of the buying decisions at these enterprises, is really key. And that's about the trust. And so that you are then a supplier of choice. So, there's no secret sauce, being human, but I'd say that, anchoring on those questions, you can't go wrong. And you always want to delight the customer. So understand, what does success look like for them? So just, asking them, how do you measure success? Has that changed over time?
Oh my, that last point really hits home, because one thing I'm actually changing in my my agency is so we have a good solution for a specific industry, but one thing we've started to do, and we should have been doing this for a while. I mean, we did it to a degree, but not as much as we should have, which is in the very beginning, being able to strategize. Not only are we moving forward with this service, but also what are your specific goals on a monthly or even yearly basis, or even beyond, and what is your vision, and how can we work towards that? Because even though we're setting up certain things and it's like kind of like a one-time type of deal, it's really important for us to ensure that they get good results, because that's only going to help us in the end, because we're able to get good testimonials, get good results from them, and then ultimately help them as well to continue to grow and even maybe recommend this to other people. So in the very beginning, I think especially that's very important to, even if that means just getting on a call with them once a month or even once a week if you can, and just seeing where they're at, and not really just assuming things too much, because I think that's something that I used to do a lot, and I saw a lot of other people do that a lot. And just having good communication and being able to, especially right now, everyone's at home, but if you can get on a Zoom call, and even if it's just 10 or 20 minutes, that could be the difference between them, whether if it's a subscription, them renewing, or even just being able to serve them better and being able to, just improve your services altogether, which could attract a lot more clients. So I think it is in your best interest and their best interest to just have a good communication line, all throughout the whole process of whatever, however you're helping them, whether that's a 60-day period or, 1 week period. And then also following up after whatever the period of engagement.
Yeah.
No, thank you for all of this amazing information. I think these are things that I'm seeing both in the entrepreneurial space, and it seems like you're seeing these in the corporate space, the same kind of challenges, and there's definitely certain gaps. And it's like, if you understand, I think, maybe how to put yourself ahead of the competition and really improve your sales, improve your leadership, I think that's something that could really just take everything to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Yeah. And, the agency world is a unique world, but anytime you make them the rock star or their product, superior to their competition, you've won. And, you're going to get that next campaign. or that next placement. So, it's critical for you to really understand what their motives are and what their evaluation criteria is.
Yeah, and even with assumptions, I mean, we always assume that everyone was after the ROI, but we've actually found that to not always be the case too. Sometimes it's saving time, sometimes it's being able to have a more streamlined business and just being able to not have to worry about certain things. Or, I mean, I've been surprised many times. So, but before we leave things off, I mean, did you have any other pieces of tips or information that you think could help people, or maybe even like any resources people could learn more? And of course, at the end, I'll let you add anything for people to get in contact as well.
Yeah, I put out weekly tips on LinkedIn, and I post a blog to my website, so people are free to connect with me and follow me there at Business Fierce and Jill Robbins on LinkedIn. I'm a big proponent. I know, you mentioned Gary Vee. He's great. Ed Millett is another great one. He's, out there regularly sharing tips. So, depending on what business you're in, you can find thought leaders and influencers in your space. And I would encourage you to do that. And, just have a big picture mindset and understand the inner workings of who you're selling to, and how your good or service fits in to their total value proposition as a business.
Very well said. So anyone who's watching this, what is the best way for them? I know you're of course on LinkedIn, but what is the best way for them to contact you if they have any questions or want to access anything? What's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, you can reach me at Jill, Jill, at businessfierce.com, or you can DM me on LinkedIn. So those are the best ways to get in contact with me. And, I'm happy to have conversations, be of service to anyone. And, I love what I'm doing. I think we all kind of find our calling at different points in our career. But it's very, very motivating to see my clients be successful, take their business to a new level of success that they may have stalled out for a couple years because, they didn't know how to, get over the hurdle as they were selling into procurement. So I'm loving what I'm doing. And, I love helping, businesses all around the world.
It's amazing. And yeah, I'm sure you're helping a lot, currently, but also in the past. I mean, just they would never be able to hit that other level if they didn't solve all those problems, if they didn't ask the right questions. So it's good that you're there to kind of see the big picture and being able to help them throughout the whole process. But thank you so much, Joe, for being on. And I know we met on LinkedIn and everything. And I was, like I said, I was looking at your experiences. I thought you'd be perfect for the community that we're continuing to build. It's like I was saying before the interview. I mean, there's a lot of people that have jobs, but they're also looking to start something, or maybe they already started something, and maybe they're looking to apply this like you did on a more massive scale or with bigger companies. So I think either way, just being able to understand the things that you've talked about, I mean, those are things that can really go a long way. So yeah, thank you so much for being on.
Yep, definitely. And I'm going to be writing an ebook too. So I've been on a couple other podcasts and been challenged to write an ebook
awesome.
in this space. So, I'm a big proponent of entrepreneurs and innovators. So definitely that's what makes the world go round.
Absolutely. Before we leave things off, is that email that I'm putting on the bottom, is that correct? Jill at businessfierce.com. Did I write that correctly? Okay, perfect. So anyone who wants to contact Jill, and of course you're going to have that ebook. If you want access to the ebook, I'm sure you'll have that in maybe a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I don't know when, but
probably early in the new year, it'll be available on my website. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll be doing interviews every single week. If anyone wants to be on an interview, please contact me and we'll sort it out. And yeah, thank you so much again.
Thanks, Alex.